He had gotten to the place where his businesses were no longer dependent on him, and I was in a situation where 2 businesses were fully dependent on me. Kurt Kersey, a mutual friend of ours, gave me the title Failed Retiree.
Part of the thing about leadership is, in many cases, you're expected to have all the answers.
That's so true.
No human has all the answers.
If you have people who are violating your values, violating your culture, they will eventually erode that culture.
Making that decision, you never say, I should have waited longer. Then I finally have learned that conflict can be incredible. Debate and disagreement can lead us to clarity we've never thought imaginable. If you were to say, here are the top 3 things I see teams struggling with today.
Yeah.
What are those?
Full disclosure to our viewers, if I may. This is the only question that Mike gave me ahead of time.
Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Hey, can I ask you a favor? Can you please hit subscribe or follow on any platform that you're listening or watching this episode? Our goal is to connect with you, to bring additional value to you, to bring additional topics to you, and we can do that more effectively if you hit subscribe or follow. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. Today, you're in for a treat. You get to join us in the studio with a very dear friend, mentor, advisor, and confidant, Kevin Rains. So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. And since I've been a confidant, I'm going to be sharing all the secrets today.
Well, you know.
Is that okay?
I've definitely reached out to you a few times and asked for advice. So.
Open, honest, and vulnerable. Let's go there.
So, and that's my hope today for those listening that we share. There's clearly some guidance and wisdom I'd like to draw out that I know that you provide some special magic for and some special experience, I think, as you would say.
There
I've just had the experience.
Yes.
And, so we'll go down some pathways.
Sounds great. I come by this gray beard honestly. So that's where the experience resides. I put some years on it, and we'll get there.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, one of the things that you've been referenced in a few recent episodes is around helping leaders find the value and impact and elevation of true focused strategic planning. We've been working with one of our mutual clients, Steinhauser. Tara was just on.
Love Tara.
She said, the moment I brought up the 3 magic letters, EOS, it's added a next level.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
And you and I both know the success that they're having.
Yes.
Right. They were already doing amazing work.
They were.
And then there's this level of elevation that they all feel right now.
Exciting.
And I'd love for our listeners to be able to take some of that and take it back to the work they're doing. Yeah. So let's start there, but I'm going to angle it in. You've ran businesses.
Yes.
You've led companies. You've probably had some where you had strategies and others that you wish you had strategies.
That's fair.
So what led you into focusing on EOS? What value do you think it brings to organizations?
I think the value primarily is it's a way to harness human energy, is what we say, right? So it's something that simplifies businesses and helps them find simplicity. Business is hard enough as it is. It's complex enough as it is. And Dan Sullivan talks about this concept of hitting the ceiling.
Yeah.
So we talk about how do you get through that ceiling, and Dan calls them ceilings of complexity. Our intuition is let's add more complexity. Let's add a new tool or a new technology or some level of complexity, or let's hustle harder or grind harder. The reality is it's usually simplicity that helps us break through ceilings of complexity. Okay. So one of the things I love about EOS, and one of the things it did for me in my business, is I went many years without it, and I went many years with it, and I can tell you the difference.
Okay.
The difference that I found is it simplified things like strategic planning. So rather than having a 40-page strategic plan, EOS helped me get that down to answering 8 simple questions. What are your core values? What's your core focus? And then the other questions as well. So this idea that we can just answer these questions, document that into 2 pages, that's plenty to run a very large business on. There are companies in the hundreds of millions now who are running on a 2-page strategic plan. It seems, again, very counterintuitive, but simplicity wins over complexity every time in our book.
Yeah. And it becomes clearer to the organization.
Yes.
When it's simple.
Absolutely agree. It's one of these things where maybe the leadership team or the senior leadership team who has graduate degrees in business, they can digest that 40-page strategic plan. When you cascade that all the way down to the shop floor, in my situation, it gets it gets harder for them to be like, they're just not wired to have those kind of conceptual conversations or those conceptual ideas in those longer documents. So by getting it on 2 pages, it literally helps you cascade it through the organization so that whether you're the CEO or it's your first day that you've been hired to work on the shop floor, you can understand the vision equally within moments. Literally.
And when you say equally for the organization, the leadership team, and them as a contributor?
Yeah, they can then see how does their piece contribute to this larger vision that we're all going after. And then, again, we're not just cascading strategic planning and the vision, we're also cascading things like scorecards and numbers all the way through the organization.
Yeah, and I think so often, we've probably all experienced this, where the plan is so complicated and not everyone was in the room to create it.
Great point.
And therefore, it's not cascaded down to how my role even plays into the words that I hear from the enterprise, from the corporate office, from even the website, the mission and vision statement. Maybe I don't really understand how I fit into that, or I don't live it out because my lived experience feels different than what's stated on the website.
Oh, that's a great point. So true.
Yeah. So how are you experiencing organizations who say, we want to live it out, Kevin, and maybe they haven't in the past, or they've just found the previous strategy that they used was a little messier, more complex?
Yeah. So we always start with where they're at. And I love starting with whatever they bring to the table. Sometimes smaller companies have nothing. So we're starting with a blank slate.
Okay.
That seems fun and very straightforward. And in some ways it's easier, less complex. But companies who do have those longer strategic planning documents, and hear me clearly here, I think sometimes those are necessary for certain types of organizations. We don't want to simplify things more than they should be simplified, right? Okay. So having those documents and having that level of understanding may be necessary, especially at that C-suite level for larger companies. But we definitely want to make sure that it's simplified so that it can cascade down. So I always start with what they have. If they come to me with a 40-page strategic plan, great. My work is to help them trim, getting that down to a couple pages. Doesn't mean they scrap the other 38 pages. It just means we trim it down so that it can cascade through the organization. And then the senior leadership team may hold on to that larger document. So I find a lot of my work is simplifying as opposed to adding things that are new or complex or like the latest and greatest. A lot of times it's just simplifying things down to the lowest common denominator so that we can scale faster.
So let's talk about your scaling experience. I've heard you reference the story that leading one business or enterprise was almost more complicated, more difficult than leading many.
Multiple, yes.
And I'd love to have you share that with those that are tuning in today.
Yeah.
Because I think it provides a little bit of clarity around what you're referencing.
Okay. So I was in the auto body industry. So we fixed wrecked cars primarily for insurance claims. That was our bulk of our business. 80% of our business was insurance claims. And I was running one shop. We began to max out that shop in terms of the square footage in that shop. So I was kind of in a situation, do I buy a bigger building or do I buy another shop in a different neighborhood and start to kind of take different territory? And I decided to buy a whole nother business in a different part of town. I was in central Cincinnati, Norwood area, and I bought a shop in the Westchester area. And I thought I was just going to be like, well, this shouldn't be too hard. I'll just kind of do what I did at the other place. What I found was the complexity of running between those shops and not having clarity around those like strategic ideas of our core values, our core focus. What are we going for? What are our goals? Those types of things. I just didn't have that clarity. And in the moment, this is before EOS for me. In the moment, I was like, who can I talk to that actually understands this? So I reached out to a guy who owned 14 auto body shops. And I asked him, I said, like, how do you run 14 auto body shops? And I noticed that he came to the meeting at the coffee shop in his workout gear. He had been working out that morning. And I was like, how are you working out while your shops are all open and running? And now you're meeting with me. I'm like, you're not going to get anything done before lunch. I said, it was hard for me to carve out this hour. I'm going crazy trying to lead 2 shops. He said to me something that always stuck with me. And it's probably what you're referencing. He said, it's the easiest thing I've ever done is run 14 shops. The hardest thing I've ever done is run 2. Because when you have 2, you haven't learned to scale. You haven't learned the benefit of having a centralized team of shared services. You haven't kind of done the reps. You don't have the resources to hire the right people for the right positions in the company. Maybe you're struggling along with the same finance person that got you to $1 million. Now you're trying to go to 5 million, and that person's getting a little lost in the sauce. So you don't have the money to afford yet those types of people. So from an organizational standpoint, he had gotten to the place where his businesses were no longer dependent on him. And I was in a situation where 2 businesses were fully dependent on me. Yeah. And that's when I started leaning into the EOS idea of we have to delegate in order to elevate to our unique ability. If I wanted to do the marketing, if I wanted to do the leadership, and if I wanted to lead the culture, those are the 3 things I wanted to lean into with my business, not writing all the estimates, not dealing with all the insurance contracts, not dealing with all the customer deliveries. I would have to delegate some things. So I began delegating responsibilities, creating that accountability chart. That's what we call our org chart. And as I did that, I was able to scale up to 5 shops. Ultimately, my family had 7 locations. I owned 5, my dad owned 1, and my sister owned 1, and they all prospered really well.
At what point did you get referred to EOS? Did someone say, hey, you should talk to this person, or you should read this book? Or how did take me from that coffee conversation with that other leader who had 14 to you processing, I think I need to do something different?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a fun one too. So I don't know Gino Wickman, the guy who started EOS. I've walked past him. We've kind of met eyes and waved, but I don't know him. So let me preface this whole story with that.
Okay.
But we do share a common mentor. So one of Gino's mentors is Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach. Somewhere along the way, early on, I realized I needed help in coaching. So I signed up for Dan Sullivan's program, and I went to that program for 4 years, went through it, and I saw that he was promoting Gino's book on his shelf whenever I'd go to the sessions, the full day sessions with Dan's team. So I bought the book. It had a cool picture on the front of a car tire, and I'm like, that fits my industry. Maybe there's something there for me. Yeah. So I read that book, and I began self-implementing it from there. So over time, I realized I needed more than what I could offer myself through reading and absorbing some of the free resources. Yeah. And I hired an implementer. And then when I sold my business, I became an implementer at that person's invitation.
Okay. I did not know that you were in Dan's strategic coach program.
Yeah, for 4 years.
That's awesome. So I'm going to take a little bit of a veer there because that's a new insight. The book, The Gap. Have you read the book, The Gap?
I've listened to it. It's The Gap and the Gain. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. What was your greatest takeaway from that book, or what do you feel like is the greatest lesson learned in that book?
So that was one of the first things that Dan and Dan's coaches teach in their sessions is not living in the gap. I would say the thing that I've learned is the confidence. Like Dan would talk a lot about like the main thing that erodes if we live in the gap. And by the gap, he means if we live in that distance between what we envision and where we are, we're constantly realizing like how far we have to go. Is it erodes your confidence as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, as a person, right? So you have to turn around and measure the gain. Even if the gain is small, you celebrate every win and every gain. So the big takeaway for me was I had to figure out a system for preserving my own confidence and kind of taking Dan's ideas with my background in ministry and saying like, that's really gratitude. It's learning to be thankful for the things that I do have and the progress that I have made and or the progress that God has allowed me to make in my worldview. So living with a sense of gratitude and then getting that down to a very tactical level of every day in a journal, recording 3 wins or 3 things that I'm thankful for every single day. And I literally do that every day, and I've done that for years.
How do you keep track of that? What app do you use?
I use the Day One journal app on my phone. And I just, whatever pictures I take during that day, I upload those pictures on that day.
Yeah.
And then every day I also look back at the previous year's pictures and gratitudes. Awesome. And that gives me another sense of like, hey, I've been at this a while, and there's like a chain now of several years of gratitude and pictures that are in this journal. So it gives me a sense of forward momentum rather than living in what Dan calls the gap.
Are you looking for a place that you can create the content that helps market your brand? Or are you somebody who just needs a space that they can record a podcast, record talking head social content? You want to create a webinar, a course, or other content like that? Take a look at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. We're a space built just for creators like you. Our studio here in downtown Cincinnati, located right next to all the hot restaurants in OTR, is set and ready for you. We can have up to 4 people in our studio. You can record long form, short form content. It looks awesome. The lights change colors. I mean, even there, hi, in the background. What's up there, guys? We have all the technical amenities to try and help you succeed at creating high quality content. We work on everything from subscriptions to create your own show. We do day rentals so you can create massive volumes of content and we'll just hand you all the footage. And we can even do things like limited time series where you can come in, record a bunch of episodes at one go, and then have that ready for a show to market your brand or your business. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a brand, or an author who's looking to market themselves with high quality video content, check out our website at CincinnatiPodcastStudio.com and schedule a tour today.
I learned the concept gets pointed out to me. It still gets pointed out to me. I wouldn't say on regular occasion anymore, but by my dad.
Oh, interesting.
Who reminds me, hey, you may want to go reread that.
Wow. Interesting.
It's also something that Mary and Tony Miller, who Mary's been involved in strategic coach for a long time.
She was my coach for a while.
Okay.
I love Mary.
Mary has also reminded me on my journey since with our succession plan, moving in, let's say the last 8-9 years now, helping Amber and I understand that when you're on the journey and you own an organization and you're an entrepreneur and you're running multiple companies and you have a vision that's bigger than what you may ever achieve, you can find yourself sitting in the gap quite often.
That's right.
And it can kind of be paralyzing. So I think it's a great concept.
Absolutely.
And it never fails where my dad's like, hey, you should go read that book again right now because I think you need it.
So can I turn the tables and ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. How have you taken your dad's advice? What have you done with that idea of like, you need to start living with the game, not the gap, or revisit that concept? What do you do?
Yeah. So the gratitude is a key practice for me. When I get out of that practice is when I start feeling this really dark pressure.
It's a good
and
word.
It's like, why is this happening? Why do I feel this way? So some of the things that I do, one is expressing gratitude for where we are, not where I think we should be. Right? Huge difference.
Massive.
And also evaluating exercise and physical activity.
Oh, that's good.
There's a direct correlation when I'm not doing my 30 hours a week or 30 hours a month fitness goal, where I'm trying to just be active 30 hours a month.
Okay.
That could be a 5-hour hike. That could be a 15-minute meditation. That could be a, 3 30-minute Peloton rides.
Wow.
But trying to get to 30 hours at a minimum, hitting that goal. When I'm not there, again, my mind takes me into this dark, frustrating place. So expressing gratitude, also recognizing how blessed and fortunate we are. Right now, I have noticed over the last, let's say, 18 months where there's been a lot emotionally going on in my life. That kind of my biggest work problems are mostly opportunity statements.
Wow.
It's not full on negative that brings stress. Sometimes it's honestly, it's the good because what happens, I start thinking about the gap, right? So it's like, well, wait a minute. If I could just, which is all defining the gap. So I, again, this book is near and dear to me because I'm often thinking about, I need to think about the gain. I need to focus more on all the great things that are happening. And even how we as leaders, when we express the negative, and if we're more wired to express the negative, that comes out in our body language, that comes out in our tone. It comes out in what I would just call the energy that you put off to your team.
Hold on. You've been talking to my wife.
Exactly.
That all sounds painfully familiar.
Yeah. And it's kind of bringing you back to center.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a little bit of my response to the question.
That.
I hope that answered.
Oh, huge. Great. Who gave you the 30 hour a month, or is that unique to you? I love that idea.
So, coming out of 2020, I was in probably the worst mental and physical shape of my life.
Wow.
And I remember the day where I bought a bicycle, and on April 18th, 2021, I took my first bike ride.
Wow.
One of the things, and I'm trying to remember if it was you or John Herman, I was sitting in a life session, and you all, the two of you, have really helped me, along with a lot of entrepreneurs in our community, think about how to leverage the VTO and EOS methodology for our personal lives.
Yes.
So I've always been a goal setter. And between the book, there's a book called 5 that we use in our mastermind programs.
You showed me that, and I love that.
Yeah. So between 5 and leveraging EOS of setting goals, one of the things that I decided to set was 30 hours a month. I'm going to give myself space, which is radically difficult, to spend 30 hours a month.
Wow.
And that means you and I could go on a walk for 35 minutes.
That counts towards that.
All counts towards that.
Love
so it's being active and taking time, whether you're active with friends, with colleagues, or doing a workout in your garage and sweating bullets like I was the day at noon.
For you.
I hopped on a live webinar and was like, you know what? I'm going to do a Father's Day webinar about leadership, tying leadership and fatherhood together, and I'm going to do a 30-minute Peloton
while
ride.
you're working out.
And I literally said, do not turn the camera to me because my heart rate could be 147 to 156. But that's, kind of setting that goal. I will tell you, from April 2021 until September 2024, I missed that goal by 3 months. In 3 months, only 3 months.
Wow.
October to May. October 2024 to May 2025, I fell off the wagon.
Okay.
So
3 times.
No. 3 times from April 2021 until September 2024.
Okay.
3 times.
Okay.
Missed the objective.
That's quite a run.
But recently reminding myself, and Luke just shared it in a recent episode, where it's like, forget the day, the hour, the year, the month that you're behind or need to get, and just do it. Just create movement. So I'm trying to get back on that.
So those 3 misses, just to clarify, that's the gap. The gain is you've been at this a while, and you've been overall very consistent in winning. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
So including my hike at Dappled Light that I did last year, that's in my fitness journal, would be towards the 30 hour a month goal.
That's awesome.
So share with me a little bit about Dappled Light and where you find the vision of retreating, whether that goes spiritually or personally. How does retreating connect to an organization that your family owns called Dappled Light?
Yeah, great question. So brief story, we bought that property about 20 years ago, and we just didn't develop it. We just used it for our own family and friends. We'd go camping down there. We eventually had a little camper, built a small cabin. Over time, it just kind of evolved. And then when I sold my businesses, my son came to me and said, hey, I still want to continue working together. I'm like, here's a chance for me and my son to continue working together into his late 20s. What a wonderful opportunity. Let's develop this 50 acres that we own. And we began doing this. We put some short-term rental pieces of property on there, like little structures, like campsites in the canopy on wood. Then we built a second cabin. Now we've just recently almost completed. We're within about a month of completing. I don't know when this will air, but we'll be very close to completed. with a thing called the Rookery, which is a cliffside building. We invested over $1 million in this building. I am so excited to unveil it this fall with several of my teams and other people's teams. So the vision here is that we're pivoting away from being just a short-term rental company to a retreat center. Part of that is because of how we're wired. Our family is very much wired for hospitality. So short-term rental is a type of hospitality, but retreats in our mind take that to a completely different level because now you're opening up a space, you're creating conversations with and for people, you're giving them the opportunity to envision a much bigger future. So retreats for me, it's everything. It's how I connect with God spiritually is in nature, right? In his creation, being around the trees. It speaks to me. He speaks to me through that. In terms of like how it affects me from a vision standpoint and even a revenue and a business standpoint and ideation standpoint, I just feel like being in that setting, it just opens me up to things I would never get to in my ordinary life. So it hits every part of my life when I am consistent with my own personal retreats and then also taking my clients on retreats. What we've noticed is, and you've experienced this over and over, Mike, when you get into a different setting, it just opens up a different type of conversation, which then allows for team health to just kind of naturally start to flourish. So I've just noticed an abundance of openness and honesty and vulnerability take place when people get outside of their normal routines and settings, get away and have those deeper, more honest conversations. So it's rare. I can't guarantee that every team that comes on a retreat with me will cry, but there are often tears or emotion or depth that we just don't get to in those regular sessions. So I'm just convinced more and more like my future is going to be tied to retreats.
Yeah, you and I have a very similar wiring around encouraging others to take that time away, to step into a different environment, whether it's masterminds, roundtables, or retreats. I know I've sat, I want to say, it was one of the glamping tents. I want to say it was the Bird's Nest.
Well, they're all named after birds, so it might have been the Cardinal's Nest or
it
Green Heron Nest or
but
Goldfinch.
I've sat there with my book 5.
Okay.
And my vision traction organizer.
Love it.
Setting some personal goals on at one of those locations and experienced incredible fire pit dialogue, connecting with friends in a different way.
Yeah.
Right? Not sitting down for breakfast at a restaurant or sitting down in your office or my office, but like just hanging out and enjoying a refreshment and making breakfast on the fire pit. I mean, what gets better than that?
I love that.
As well as hikes on your property.
Yes.
And throughout the gorge.
Yes. So what we're trying to create now, thank you for saying all that. Thank you for going there. And I'm glad that you found benefit in that. And we're just honored that you use that space. We want more mics down there, more people like you down there, because you truly bless that space with your presence. And what we're trying to create here is something that's more effortless for people and more comfortable.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who wouldn't naturally think, hey, I'm going to go to the woods and take a retreat. We're trying to create a scenario where they can enjoy the fullness of that natural environment, but have a lot of creature comforts as well. And we're also trying to take all the static out of the system for them and make it effortless. So if they say, hey, we just want to come and you take care of the meals, you take care of the sessions, you take care of like the agenda, like we can literally curate a retreat from beginning to end for people. Or they can say, we just want to rent the space. We have our own thing we want to do. Great. So we're on that whole continuum, but our goal is to make it as effortless as possible, to take all the friction out so that it makes it a pleasant and enjoyable experience for pretty much anybody to go down.
That's awesome. Well, we're bringing 9 CEOs down second week of October.
Oh, wow.
So I'm hoping the new facilities are
It'll be done.
well running.
Yes.
And for us, I think we have we took the whole site for that weekend.
Love it.
And it's a CEO group that I've been involved with for a long time, 6 to 8 years. And we go to various, we do hiking trips to Hocking Hills.
Oh, man.
We go to one of our colleagues' properties in Georgia.
Wow.
And this year we rented out Dappled Light.
That's great.
So we'll make sure.
I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. the second week of October it's usually a pretty special week for the leaves turning too. So I think you probably planned that well or talked to somebody, but like that's kind of like we're heading into peak color in that time. So
it's gonna be awesome.
Good for you, man.
So we look forward to going down there. Share with us a little bit about roundtables, and let's make a call to action for those who are watching.
Yeah.
You know, and there's many different types of roundtables and masterminds. You and I both happen to lead different. I've been in yours and have been really blessed by that. That's with awesome. A lot of colleagues and buddies and new friends. But let's talk about that, because I think that we want to encourage those listening to go, you know what? I'm not in that kind of community and I could really benefit from it.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Would love to. So when I first sold my businesses, I thought I was going to retire. Kurt Kersey, a mutual friend of ours, gave me the title failed retiree. So I failed as a retiree because I immediately wanted to start other things. Yep. But what I found most exciting was like, you know, I love to fish. I don't love to play golf, but I'll play it occasionally. But I had hobbies that like were not as fulfilling to me as business. I'm wired for it. So I began coaching other business owners right out of the gate. Even before I got involved with EOS, I began just grouping people into these small groups of business owners, business leaders, and we called them legacy roundtables. So kind of leaning into this idea of what is our legacy going to be? What are we leaving behind? What's in our wake in the generations to come? So helping people think not just 10 years out, but 100 years out. What do we want to be known for? What values we want to instill in our businesses, our families, our personal life that leave that beautiful wake behind us? So I had these groups. They were pretty much all Christian men. There were some people who were on the fence about their faith, but if they were comfortable, I was comfortable. But primarily it was based around kind of a Christian worldview in the groups. And I was just developing these simple tools, things I'd learned in Strategic Coach, things I've learned from books that I've read over the years, and just trying to pull out the best of the best. So that provided some content. But what I realized, people don't really need more and more content. There's so much good content out there.
Right.
And oftentimes it's free. And if you're confused about like a concept or an idea, or how does this resource relate to this one, now there's AI to help us with that. So there's plenty of content, and a lot of it is good. So I said, what's kind of the next thing we want to add on top of that? It's coaching around that content, because those books can't coach the person in front of me or the group of men in front of me. And then beyond that, what I found was happening was community. And that became, in the reverse order for me, the real value proposition of my legacy roundtables is it's community first. Then we do coaching. So every month we're coaching one or more people on a specific issue that they're bringing to the mix on that given month. And I'm training the other guys in the group. And right now it's all men. I'm training the other guys in the group, those coaching skills, how to express empathy, how to listen well, how to ask good questions, all the stuff that you do naturally through this podcast. Like there's a methodology to learning those skills. I try to train that in my roundtables.
Yep.
But then the pinnacle for me is that community that develops. And pretty soon they're coaching each other, and their families are getting to know each other at one of our quarterly lake days or one of our quarterly events. Their families are connecting and knowing each other. They're hanging out outside of that roundtable. So it's community, coaching, and content. Those are the pillars of all the roundtables that I lead.
That's awesome. I thank you for the experience of being in one of your roundtables. I would add the word that comes to mind is space. Creating space. You know, I can't tell you how often, for those who are in a roundtable experience, you may go, there's always that moment the day before that you're like, I have so many things I could or should or need to be doing.
Yeah.
But the space, it's inevitable coming out of the experience. You know, the half-day legacy roundtable, you're like, I am so glad I was there.
Good.
There was something about the space, the space that your mind and your heart opens up that allows you to hear from others, allows you to think about things through a different lens and a different perspective, allows you to raise the hand and ask a question that you're like, I don't really know who else I would ask that question to, right? Yeah. We often say, in our mastermind program, as a leader, Fortunately or unfortunately, part of the thing about leadership is in many cases you're expected to have all the answers.
That's so true.
And no human has all the answers.
Absolutely not.
So why does that expectation exist?
Yeah.
And it's great for a leader to step out of their container, their space, and say, you know what? Here's a place that's safe for me to raise my hand, to express frustration or challenges or ask questions and provide value to others in different angles of your life that you might not get to at work.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And connect in a different level and create those friendships. But so often that taking the time, creating the space allows for the community, the friendship, and the skill development that you're providing. You referenced you're trying to build the skill of coaching into every participant.
That's right.
So that they can be better coaches.
Yes. And, that's coming from this idea. I think it was John Maxwell. It may have been somebody else, but like the fruit of a leader is not a follower. It's another leader. So the fruit of a coach, I'm a coach, is not just a coachee or a mentee. It's actually training them to become coach-like, developing those skills. So if I'm doing my job well in those round tables, I'm helping them become coaching leaders in their families, in their businesses, and in their personal life.
Yeah, I love that. I can't say I wish that many people had that same feeling. Sometimes I think people assume that, nope, I'm the coach. I don't want you to learn the skill I have because then, that abundance mentality is what you just referenced.
Yes.
A lot of people don't have it, to be honest. But that's what you get out of being in your Legacy Roundtable experience.
Great.
So
thanks for saying that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Kevin, when you working with the amount of leaders and teams that you work with in a very non-descriptive, non-specific way, let's talk about some of the challenges you see teams dealing with. What are the, if you were to say, here are the top 3 things I see teams struggling with today. What are those? So we
referenced one at the beginning, but it's this idea of complexity. Complexity will creep into organizations. So we have to be vigilant about fighting back complexity by using the tool of more and more simplicity.
Okay.
The second thing I would say is people. So most of the issues, I think EOS goes on record saying 80% of the issues in businesses is related to people.
Wow.
You might not have the right person. You might not have them in the right seat. They might not just be a fit for that particular business or industry. So your work with people, we would see that as paramount. Like all the stuff that you do is absolutely critical, and you're hitting that 80% of the issues revolve around people. So getting the right people into the right seats. And how do we do that practically? It's a concept that I heard for years, and I read it in Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, and I resonated with it. But EOS has taken that down to the tool level. So we have tools that help you determine if you have the right people in the right seats and what to do if you don't, basically. The third thing I would say is data. I think a lot of people, at least the type of people that I'm drawn to and that are drawn to me, aren't always data driven, including myself. Right?
Okay.
I love to lead from my gut, from my intuition, from my instinct. I have a good gut feel, and I just know to just go a certain direction. But there has to be data to either back that up or prove that right or prove that wrong.
Okay.
So especially as organizations begin to grow and you go from being an entrepreneur to having an entrepreneurial organization, there has to be a data component that gets introduced along the way. A scorecard, a measurable, some kind of a number for everybody, so that we're not just running our organizations off the gut of the founder or the CEO at the time. So those are the 3 that I mentioned: simplicity, people, and data.
The comment around data I'll add, what resonated with me when you just said that is when you use data and you have metrics, goals, and expectations, you create accountability.
Yes.
And so often individuals crave accountability.
Yes.
They wish they had more accountability and had more specifics attached to their function or themselves so that they know whether they are or are not successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the beautiful thing about that word accountability gets thrown around a lot, and it's an important concept, an important word. But in EOS, we believe that nobody can hold anybody else accountable. So what holds them accountable? It's their role description or job description. It's the number actually holds them accountable. We try to find numbers and metrics that they can control. So lead measures or activity-based measures versus these lag measures. It's like the P&L. It's like, that's already in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, that happened 45 days ago.
Exactly. Right. You're trying to drive a car and you're using your rearview mirror versus using your windshield.
Right.
The windshield is that like weekly data component. It's like, that's the next signpost.
Yeah.
The next exit's coming up. Like, so we try to create these activity-based lead measures for people so they're in control of it. It's like, for a salesperson, did you make 10 sales calls this week? Well, you made 7. Well, that's not good enough. You need to make 10 in order to hit the goal. So next week, now you have to make 13 calls to make up the difference. So it puts them, there's a sense of agency for them. They can move the needle. And it's also not me micromanaging them through what I think accountability is. Like, I'm looking over their shoulder, making sure they're making their 10 calls every week.
Right.
They do it or they don't. And it's documented. It's a number. It's kind of objective.
Right. Right. So the 80% of business challenges are people related. If we peel back that 80%, what are some of the topics inside that 80% of people challenges are you experiencing?
Yeah, great question.
And what dynamics? Let's talk about some of the dynamics that broad brush that you experience.
You have to weigh in on. I know I'm not trying to turn the interview back to you, but like, this is your area of expertise. I'll say a couple of things, but I'd love to know your top thoughts around this as well.
Sure.
It's definitely right people, right seats. So right people is oftentimes what we find is, and I found this in the body shop world, I'd find people who are extremely competent at their job, the best painters, the best people to fix cars, the best people to write estimates, all the technical knowledge to pull those things off. But they didn't match the culture, the values that we had set out. So we had the value of care. We care for our customers. We care for our team members. And I would constantly hear people like berating each other or talking down about other people behind their back. And it's like, that's not a culture fit. And if you have people who are violating your values, violating your culture, they will eventually erode that culture.
Yeah.
So we have to deal with people issues quickly on the right people side, the culture and values side. If we let that linger, we're setting ourselves up for a world of hurt in the future. And some of those right people will move on. If you don't have the guts to cut those people loose, no matter how good they are at their job, if we don't have the guts to cut them loose, other good people will eventually move on.
Okay, so you may be thinking, how do I do this? How do I lead unconventionally? How do I lead my team in a way that's unconventional? How do I build a strategy that's unconventional to elevate my organization and those around me? I want to encourage you to reach out to the link through the link in the description. I want to encourage you to reach out through the link in the description and post that question. I want to learn how to lead more unconventionally. I want to help my team think unconventionally, and let's start the conversation. So thank you for joining us, and let's get back to the episode. That is one of the difficult realities of not stepping into leadership.
Yeah.
And we've all experienced it.
Yeah.
And we all know, I always tell everyone, I finally have learned that making that decision, you never say, I should have waited longer. Right?
So true.
You always say,
what was I thinking?
Gosh, what was I thinking?
Yeah. What took me so long?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll add to that from turning the mic around. Yes. What you just referenced is what we call our 4 C's. So where competency, you can be hitting home runs in competency, but be lacking in character, culture, and chemistry.
Yes.
So that those 4 C's are what Centennials, our search firms, kind of operating principles. Our whole business runs off of our proprietary 4C recruiting process.
That's awesome.
And we've seen, I say, through measurement and science of doing this for this year, 50 years, where that chemistry, I was talking to a leader today, a CEO who's been an incredibly bold CEO who is gone from greenfield startup to almost full FDA approval And the journey they've been on the last 4 years has been absolutely amazing.
Wow.
And I, had a meeting with her, and I said, I don't know if I just walked out of a church service or if I just had a meeting with a CEO talking about business,
That's
but
encouraging.
Some combination of the two. And the comment that she's referenced is that chemistry and character component
Yes.
have been so incredible with the people that have been led to her as hires.
Yeah.
That you couldn't have done this without that, right? Because you wouldn't have the right chemistry and character can withstand a greenfield startup.
Wow.
The wrong cannot. It can be
Cannot.
incredibly frustrating of the challenges you go through when launching a complete full-scale FDA-approved manufacturing organization. So I add that. The other thing is the skill around communications and how few leaders really know how to communicate effectively.
Wow.
How few leaders are willing to lean into confrontation. How few leaders are afraid to say the thing that needs to be said.
Yep.
So there's some boldness around leadership that's necessary.
Yeah.
I say often, I finally have learned that conflict can be incredible.
Yeah.
Right? Debate and disagreement can lead us to clarity we've never thought imaginable.
Totally agree.
But most people say conflict, I want no part of it.
Right.
Right. And I have to say, I did too. I was one of those for a long time. I received coaching from an executive coach by the name of Lynn Rule, who's on our faculty and helped our family business
Amazing.
go through our own succession plan.
Okay.
And then I also have done things where I did not step up as a leader, where I made the mistake of not addressing the problems. And then when you do, you realize how shameful of me to not step into the problem, to not deal with the uncomfortable. And we see that all around us.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of our work is helping your team be more optimal.
Yeah.
And then what does that mean?
Yeah.
That might mean that we just don't communicate in a way where one another can hear each other.
Yeah.
That might mean that we don't know each other well enough to really respect the strengths that we all bring and the challenges that we might bring with us too, because we all have them.
Yes.
And therefore, what org chart do you need to build because of it? It might mean that the way that we communicate, it's not what we say, but how we say it. Things like that show up.
Yes.
Often these types of skills are skills that are completely transcend personal, professional
absolutely.
life, right?
Yeah.
So helping teams get better, work muscles that they haven't worked sometimes ever. They've never been told.
Right.
That's how they come across. They've never been told, this is how that feels violating when you say this or do this or don't do this or follow up this way or jump over me in an org chart this way. So just helping people work on that team dynamic. I often think that could be some of the most important work we do.
I agree.
Helping individuals learn how to be better and more effective communicators and bring not just a caring spirit, but a compassionate and accountable spirit.
Yeah.
Those two things together, some compassion and some accountability, everybody can strengthen that muscle a little bit more.
Absolutely.
So those dynamics. The other thing I'll have to say is also strategic planning done well can have impact that is paramount to your career and the history of your organization.
Wow. Good.
So often it's just not designed well or just not implemented well, just not the word that I think you and I would use is cascaded down and throughout an organization well.
Right.
So leaders, executive teams get frustrated because of what's not being accomplished. And often when you peel that layer back, you go, well, what have you done to help it be accomplished, right? How can anyone accomplish this vision if they don't really understand how their role fits in?
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
And so often you walk into that. Like if you 6 don't understand it,
right?
How could 600 other people in your organization
never
understand
get it?
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that can be hard to accept.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the things I would put into that 80% bucket.
Yeah, that's great.
These are the people are peopling challenges of business
Yes.
that we all are working through.
Well, that was a full circle moment for me. And here's the trail is when you said the 4 C's, I believe your dad is a mentor to a mutual friend of ours, Todd Feaster.
Yeah.
And Todd taught me those 4 C's, and he gives your dad credit for those, or your organization credit for those. But he added a 5th because he's in the financial world. He added cash. Yeah. Of course.
Thank you, Todd, for helping us hold ourselves accountable. Yeah. So Todd, just to reference that, Todd is not just a great mentor, I would say like a prayer and accountability partner, but also has helped me learn that 5th C.
Oh, interesting.
And how important cash is to a business to be viable and successful.
Wow.
So fine tuning the skill of thinking about business and what business needs for its longevity.
Yeah.
An organization like theirs and their team can have powerful impact.
Yeah, for sure.
like all of this is good.
Yeah.
But what's left, and now you know why your bank's, having feedback on you. As an entrepreneur and as a startup co-founder, that has taken time to learn.
Absolutely.
Like, wait a minute. If I do this is the net result. Or if I think about it this way and break down profitability and create accountability and understand the strategy and what's profitable, what's not profitable, what can I shed, what can I put on, can really have a powerful impact.
Got to have cash to drive that overall engine and that longevity. I came out of a ministry background. Before I was in the family business of auto body, I was in the ministry. And when I first started running the shops, it was kind of with that ministry mindset. Like I was all about caring for my team and putting them first and sacrificing for them, which meant there wasn't a lot of cash left over. And my dad came to me and he said, profit is not a 4-letter word. You don't need to be afraid of profit. So it kind of I had to rewire that piece of my brain around that. And Todd was a part of that. I mean, that was an 18-year journey of getting very comfortable making money and not seeing that as a selfish pursuit, but that's a way to create legacy, longevity, jobs for more people. So if we're profitable, it opens up all kinds of good possibilities that allow us to express those values so much better.
I think it's also helpful because some listening today may not be the business owner.
That's fair. Yeah.
Right. They may not be the one with the level of accountability on their back of the bank.
Yes.
Right. But it's a really important point for us to all understand that your business, your organization needs to be profitable.
Yes.
And don't look at profit as a negative.
Right.
That, the man's trying to be profitable.
Right. It's not greed.
Like your business will thrive. Your employment will be sustained. Your family will have the ability to be employed. And hopefully your organization is able to also give back and make a impact in their community.
Yeah.
And then the neighborhood that you're in, and the values you believe in, if you're more profitable.
Yeah.
Right. If a strategic plan helps an organization and every team member see themselves in said plan and is achieved, that has a cascading effect. It should have a profitable impact.
Yeah.
And you should be able to feel the energy about being in a business that's more profitable.
Yeah.
I say often, Kevin, the challenge with business today is that margins are so razor thin.
Yeah.
One mishap or global pandemic or customer departing or product going out.
It's fragile.
Can wreck a business.
It absolutely can.
And can wreck a supply chain of businesses, which is a little scary, to be honest.
Scary. Yeah.
We live off so razor thin margin.
Yes.
And I have lots of opinions of how we got there. We won't go down that path today. But so let's talk a little bit about family and impact. So you referenced earlier that you have a business with your son. I think you also have a business with a daughter. And talk about what legacy means to you and how you've weaved your own family enterprise into this next phase of your life.
Yeah. Great question. So starting businesses with my kids is kind of like the secret play behind that for me. And of course, if they listen to this, they'll know my secret here. It's really not hidden from them. Is I want to stay involved with their lives over the long haul. Yeah. So to hear a story of you and your dad, how long have you guys worked together?
25 years.
Wow. And you're only 28. So that's amazing.
That's right. And he would add, and I helped you start your own lawn care company, son.
There you go. That counts.
We've probably in business for like 30 years.
Wow. So that is what I mean when I say legacy. It's like this idea that we can, like, parents and children can have that longevity together. It's special. And children. It is special. And it's rare oftentimes. Yeah. So for me, being in business with my kids is it's a way to stay in relationship with them over the longer period of time. It's a way to anchor them locally. So a lot of kids will fly the coop and go off, and there's nothing wrong with that. If they want to go to college far away or start a business in another state or another country, God bless them. God calls people to that. I'm all for it. Yeah. But as much as I'm able, I want to keep my arms around my family geographically. Yeah. And I want to stay connected to my kids in ways that I can mentor them and influence them positively for as long as possible. So yes, the more tactical answer is we have Dappled Light Retreat Center with my son, with my daughter who's 27 now. We have a thing called Kid Strong. We bought a franchise, Kid Strong. It's a CrossFit gym for kids.
Awesome.
And then my youngest daughter, who was adopted, she's in college now studying psychology. And we're hopeful for the trifecta that she will lead our family foundation. So we have a family nonprofit that gives grants to people who are trying to adopt.
Oh, wow.
So if we could bring her into that would be like a full circle moment for her, as well as complete that trifecta of all three kids being in the family businesses.
Yeah, that's really cool. I also think about the generations, because you also referenced you were in business with your father.
Yes.
And your sister.
That's right.
Which is also special.
Yeah.
Right? Those who have experienced it know that it's special. And I love the fact that you go on fishing trips with you and your dad are close.
Yes, we are.
And you're in each other's lives.
Absolutely.
Which we all know family businesses that don't gather around the Thanksgiving table because of the business.
That's fair. I shouldn't even laugh at that. That is a painful reality. And full disclosure, like my dad and I have had our conflicts. My sister and I have had our conflicts. But like anything else, like there's like this precious thing on the other side of that conflict where the relationship actually deepens and the respect deepens and the understanding deepens. So we're in this season now where it's like we've weathered some of those storms together and we didn't give up on each other, none of us. And we did hang together. And we went fishing a week and a half ago and didn't catch as many fish as we hoped, but we had a great time just being together.
You also, with even those fishing trips, and you know this, you know the impact that it has on the next generation leaders you're mentoring.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? So reminding us like, hey, take that time.
Yes.
Say yes to that time because it's precious. And it can, things can change immediately with health, with time, with resources.
So do it while you can.
So to take the time.
Absolutely.
Don't wait till you're, it's, I think, if anything, the generation we've learned not to wait, because if you wait till X date and this, everybody could be sick or somebody may not be there.
Wait till, the general idea of like even retirement, like we're kind of postponing like our best years.
Right.
And all of a sudden we get sick and it's like, there goes our, do it now. Make the memories when you can.
Yeah. So the moment we're recording this episode, my parents are going with us to Florida for a baseball tournament with our youngest.
Amazing.
And just last night, I'm training. I get designated the trainee of our children to drive. And my daughter and I rolled in front of our house, and she said, "Papa's here. I want him to go on a ride with me."
Oh my goodness.
So we waved my dad out of our house. We had a track banquet for our daughter, and we spend a lot of time at baseball games. So we're both going to the track banquet. My dad went to the baseball game with my youngest.
Nice.
And then we beckoned my father out of the house. He hopped in the back seat and got to drive with his 15-and-a-half-year-old granddaughter.
3 generations.
Which is one special moment, right?
Man, all those Sipples in one car.
Love it. You can only imagine the energy from that. But yeah, spending the time together, I'm very grateful that both of my parents are here. I have a lot of friends who have lost their one or both of their parents. So, so at the time of recording, we're going to be heading out for a week to enjoy some baseball in Florida.
Make those memories
in the middle of June. Which
that's not hot at all, is
just
it?
Just imagine the heat that will be coming off of the all turf field. So it'll be like 120 degrees.
Oh, great. Sounds wonderful. The things we do for our families.
That's right.
But having all those generations together, like you just can't. There's nothing better than that. Those memories that you'll make in that trip. So good job, man.
Really
You're doing
doesn't
it. You're building legacy.
Yeah.
Love it.
Kevin, one last question. To you, what is an unconventional leader?
Yeah. So full disclosure to our viewers, if I may, this is the only question that Mike gave me ahead of time. So I looked up the definition of unconventional and it resonated so well. If anybody out there has kind of done the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 8. So that means I'm a high challenge person by nature. I love challenging and I love being challenged. So when I think about an unconventional leader, it's somebody who's not taking the road that's often taken. It's taking the road less traveled. So I see myself as kind of leaning into that, like, I want to be a trailblazer. I want to cut new ground. I want to do things that have not been done before. I don't even know what all those are between now and the end of the years that I have left.
Right.
But I love leaning into this idea that we can cut a fresh trail. We don't just have to take the well-worn path all the time. So that's what it means to be an unconventional leader, is taking the road less traveled.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for your friendship.
Yeah, thank you.
Your partnership, your mentorship.
Thank you.
I'm very, very thankful that we were introduced to one another, and I look forward to our future ahead as well.
I feel all the same about you, Mike. Thank you.
We want to thank you for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. I want to thank the amazing creative genius happening at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio and encourage you to check them out. Please take a moment, hit subscribe. By you subscribing, it allows us to reach more people. It allows us to bring even greater guests to the studio, right? To help support you in your leadership of being that unconventional leader that Kevin just referenced. So we look forward to seeing you next week, and have a great one.